Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I love this. I love this league. This is a crazy, crazy league. The NBA is. You never know when something's going to happen, and that was the case in the wee early hours of the morning. No common courtesy, Woj. Thank you very much. We get woken up with news that the Lakers are targeting Dan Hurley. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Can they actually get him to leave UConn? We'll talk about the league's new TV contract. And I don't know. I guess there might be a basketball game on today. I'm not sure, though. At this point, there's so much else going on. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to it. But there may be a basketball game on today. And we'll talk about that as well. Keith, how are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm tired. I'm punchy at this point. How are you doing?
I can
Keith?
tell. I think you're a little punchy. You also see him a little cranky too, which I think we got to put Trevor down for a nap after this for a little bit and let you get a little extra sleep in there, my friend.
I need a nap for sure, but after this peek behind the curtain, I'm blocked off wall to wall all the way through the. I told my daughter, right? My daughter's home from school, obviously for summer break, and I gave her a hug and I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And she looked at me. She's like, what are you talking about?" I said, "Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow."
Yeah,
It's gonna be a crazy day.
It's the same thing here. I had been booked because Celtics guy. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to talk finals, and now it's like half of all of those is like, hey, can we talk about Dan Hurley too, which we're going to get into here for a moment. It's funny. I thought of you first thing this morning because it was before 7 a.m. I happened to be up because that's what happens when you have dogs. They get you up at this roughly the same time every day. There's no sleeping in with them, so we were already up, and I was looking at my phone when it came across, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to go in and start working right now. And then I was like, oh man, if Trevor was a younger man, he might have been stumbling home from the club, still awake when this Woj bomb came out. But now I knew you had to have been in bed. And now all I could think of was, I'm like, man, that phone's got to be going off left and right with
It
the
was.
take. Because of course, right, you get the initial Woj tweet, then you get like the three more after from him, and then I knew text messages and everything else were coming in. So let's dive in because the Lakers had to insert themselves on NBA Finals Day into the news cycle apparently, or at least Woj inserted himself in there with something. But yeah,
They definitely.
huge story.
I mean, absolutely crazy. I think I slept for 3.5 hours and got woken up by that and went, all right, grab an energy drink and we're gonna do a live show. But so I guess
Yep.
we'll just start with that. So the Lakers targeting Dan Hurley, seeing if they can pry him away from UConn, the back-to-back NCAA championship coach. They're reportedly they're going after him. They're giving a strong offer. We don't know exactly what that offer is going to look like just yet. Sounds like he's probably going to take the weekend to decide. So maybe we'll hear sometime this weekend. I'm sure it will be at the most inconvenient moment. That's when we'll find out. And then, yeah, this is going to happen. See, Studio Stu's been on the case as well.
Here he
But
is.
Keith, I thought this was what amazed me, probably more than anything else in this story, is that we're just finding out about it.
Yep.
That for weeks, like a month, we've been hearing it's JJ Redick. It's going to be him. It's going to be him. It's going to be him. And this came, I mean, you talk about, running in with the steel chair. And I mean, the surprise RKO from Woj, unbelievable that they were able to keep this quiet this long. And now here we are, where maybe it does wind up being Dan Hurley as the Lakers head coach. We'll see. That again, still very much up in the air right now. But I'm amazed that in this day and age they were able to keep it quiet for as long as they did.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a reminder for me of when Boston hired Brad Stevens. Doc Rivers had left. They ultimately ended up trading him to the Clippers in that situation when they were rebuilding. But there was no like real news. But that happened within like a day or two. We've been talking Lakers coaching search for, I don't remember when Darvin Ham got let go, but it's been at least a couple weeks,
Been a while.
if not longer. And it was like, all right, it's JJ Redick, but if it's not him, it's James Borrego. If it's not him, it's Sam Cassell. If it's not him, it's Trevor Lane. If it's not him, it's Harvin Dam. And like, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, it's everybody under the sun is apparently going to be the coach. Meanwhile, they had their guy they wanted to go get. And I don't think it was all smoke screens on the other guy. I'm sure it was, hey, if we want to get him to leave UConn, where let's face it, he's got a pretty great thing going on there. we're going to have to really pay up. We have to really make it worth his while to get him to come here. So I think the Lakers were being smart and let's move to other candidates as well, get a feel for who we're at. But yeah, I mean, we were 2 days ago, we were talking about, well, they're zeroing in. We were laughing about the terminology being used. And
Yeah.
it was like, it's JJ. And we went all into why it's JJ and what that means. And I know you've done countless radio spots and videos for Lakers Nation and elsewhere about why it's JJ Redick and why, how you feel about that. And now here we are this morning. It isn't. It's Dan Hurley, maybe. So I am very curious. I'm guessing this is going to be, because the key term that I keep hearing is massive deal. So I'm thinking we're getting a lot of years and probably a lot of money to get him to leave UConn.
For sure. Yeah, and that's probably what it's going to take, though. It's good there's no salary cap for a coach, but yeah, it's going to take a serious offer from what I understand from reading up on it a little bit. And I wasn't, aware of all the ins and outs of Dan Hurley's life. I don't follow the college game that much, but from what I've seen, it's his wife does not want to leave the East Coast and has made that clear. And as of just a few months ago, when he had opportunities to go get the Kentucky job and things like that, like, no, I'm not going to be able to get my wife to leave the East Coast. So I would imagine this would have to be huge, this offer to get him to jump over to the NBA. But if they feel like, and the key terminology that Woj has been using is a program in the NBA, trying to adapt to the new realities of the NBA CBA and try to build up players and develop players and putting more emphasis on that. If that's really the mindset of the Lakers, if they're shifting away from this, we're just going to pursue stars every single year and F them picks and all that kind of stuff, to steal the Rams phrase, then I mean, you can't do much better than Dan Hurley, right? If that's going to be their decision, that we want to turn this into a college style developmental program, but at the NBA level, hard to find somebody better. Although his personality will be interesting to see how that would work or could work at the NBA level. But I mean, this is massive, and this is out of nowhere news. So again, all the more impressive. And I guess in the bigger scheme of things, or the game within the game, really, like Woj just went on like a 15-0 run on Shams with this reporting. Like, my God.
Yeah.
That was, I wanted a live shot of Woj as he was sending out that story. And I wanted a live shot of Shams when he was informed of that story, just to get those reactions, because I have a feeling Woj was cackling maniacally, and Shams was, how when something bad happens on the court and they cut to the team's coach,
Yep.
I have a feeling Shams' reaction would have been somewhat similar to that.
Yeah, I can't imagine he was too happy, and with the way the game is played with the biggest newsbreakers in all sports, nobody likes having to go in and put in the article as first reported by the other guy. And The Athletic had to do that. Now they did the right thing. That is obviously what you do. You report it out there as, the other side had this first, and that's where it was at. So yeah, we're gonna see. I will say this: it's obviously not a done deal. So we're on now. Second guy we thought was a done deal here with the Lakers. I had a couple people ask me today on various radio spots, did JJ Redick pull out? Did he change his mind? And I said, reading everything that I'm reading, doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like they like JJ Redick plenty, but they'd just rather have Dan Hurley. And that to makes some level of sense, right? Dan Hurley has been a coach before. He's been a college coach for a long time. Your point on him being an East Coast guy and an East Coast family, true, grew up in New Jersey, played for his dad. Woj, maybe an inside source on this a little bit, wrote a book about his dad's high school program, St. Anthony's in New Jersey. So clearly he's tuned in with the Hurley family. Woj, if people don't know, I don't want to say grew up, but kind of came up as a reporter in New Jersey. That was where he was. So he covered those teams for years. Obviously knows the Hurley family quite well. My guess is that's probably where a lot of this came out of. But I think what's very interesting that you also said, Dan Hurley is an extremely emotional coach with the way he coaches both games and practices. Games are going to be one thing. he's probably going to have to adjust because we know NBA referees, if they're nothing else, they're sensitive. They get a little worked up. They don't want to be yelled and screamed at. So that's going to have to be something he's going to have to probably tone down because they're going to be like, hey, college boy, like, shut your mouth. I'll throw you out of this game. And he'll figure that out. I don't have a big thing on that. But he is known for extremely long and intense practices at the college level. Well, in the NBA, you're lucky if you get in a true practice once every other week because it's pretty much only if you have 2 days off. There's 1 day between games. That's a recovery and travel day almost always. So you're generally not jumping in the gym and practicing on those days. So that's going to be an adjustment for him too. But it's not like he hasn't been around NBA guys for his entire life and those kind of things. He'll figure all that stuff out. He's an extremely good tactical coach. He has built various systems first at Wagner, then at Rhode Island, now at UConn, where he can really be, teams that can really compete, including UConn, obviously not that case, but undermanned teams at Wagner and URI. So that, he did a really nice job with those teams, then got the better talent and really took off with UConn. And then the last thing I'll say is that player development piece that's been called out in the story and was called out in the tweets initially makes a ton of sense because the Lakers, whether it's immediately or long term, they're probably going to be an apron team or a second apron team. That's just where they operate. That's where they live. They go after big stars. They build very expensive rosters. That's generally tended to be how it goes. That's generally how you contend. Well, teams are of the belief if you're going to do that and you're going to have all these restrictions, you have to develop the guys behind them. And that could be big, for him. Now, a lot of that will fall to what staff does he put together? How do those guys develop players? But he has a good player development track record. He's put a ton of guys in the NBA. So all around, we'll see. College coaches don't always have the best track record of translating to being good NBA coaches. But I think the Lakers, assuming this is how it goes, this is a very worthy shot at trying something different and something outside the box.
Yeah. And like I said, if this is a push towards trying to develop that sustainability, that player development and all of that, that'll be fantastic. But it's not easy. It's not easy transitioning from college to the NBA. That said, it's easier transitioning from college to the NBA, in my opinion, than transitioning into head coaching the Lakers with no experience.
Yes.
So if that's where we were looking at going with JJ Redick, I think it's less of a jump for a guy like Dan Hurley than it would be for JJ Redick if we're trying to make that comparison. Neither situation is necessarily ideal. There's going to be bumps in the road, but I think Dan Hurley would have an easier time being an NBA head coach and adapting to that life than JJ Redick would jumping right into being a head coach, having never coached before.
I completely agree with you on that. I saw in your live stream this morning, as often happens in the live things, people like to spam the chat. And one guy was repeatedly dropping in some version, I'm going to paraphrase, of why didn't the Lakers go get a really good experienced coach? Really good experienced coaches aren't available to go get. Like, that's why. Like, it's because I've even seen some people, why don't they make a Godfather offer for Spo? Because Pat Riley would turn around and say, okay, you want $1 more to stay here? You do? Okay, done. Or more likely, I'm not letting you out of your contract to do that. So that's the issue. Is it's not, you can't just go. This is not a video game where you just go and get whoever you want. Like, it doesn't really work that way. Like, that is a major challenge with that.
Yeah. And that's part of why, this is not necessarily related to this, but I thought Mark Stein brought up a really good point. I think it was yesterday in his piece that with the James Borrego situation, like if the Lakers are really thinking, hey, he's going to become an associate head coach for JJ Redick, say, the Pelicans are probably just going to say no. They're not going to let him out of that contract because it is it's standard operating procedure for if a coach is getting a promotion, assistant to associate to head coach, assistant to a head coach, whatever, the team will let them out of the contract. They don't want to be seen as the team that's preventing a coach from advancing their career.
And it doesn't look good for you. It's not going to help you down the line. So yes, absolutely.
Exactly. But if it's like a lateral move, that's where teams will say, oh, no, you're under contract. So, maybe something else to consider in this whole process. If the Lakers are looking at, could we get JJ Redick and then, with James Borrego could be the guy to be the veteran coach on the coaching staff. his availability is certainly in question if that's going to be the move rather than making him a head coach.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, let's talk about the basketball game that's actually being played tonight, and that is game one of the NBA Finals. We've got the Dallas Mavericks looking to see if they can upset the favorites, the Boston Celtics. They are, last I looked, a 6.5-point favorite, which that's a pretty heavy favorite for a finals game,
Yeah.
a 6.5-point favorite going into game one. Last I looked, as always, that can shift at any time, but that's what it is right now. Keith, what are you expecting to see in this one tonight?
Yeah, I think game one has a chance to be kind of sloppy early. Both of these teams have been off for a week, so there's going to be some level of knocking the rust off. Usually, game one of a playoff series, any playoff series, but especially heightened the deeper you go, both teams are kind of feeling each other out a little bit. But I think there's also, I've seen this personally with the Celtics, especially when they've been off for a little bit, they kind of sometimes come out like they're shot out of a cannon and not in a good way. It's like I was saying earlier today, if you're sitting in the first 5 rows, you better have your head on a swivel because the pass may be headed your way. Like they tend to rocket the ball around the gym, and it's just kind of messy. And I think Dallas could be a little messy as they start out too, but then they'll settle in and it'll turn into what I think is going to be probably really close games throughout this. I think both teams have things they can pick at, go at, try to find advantages, look for different things. And I think that's going to make for a really fun and interesting series in the end.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, it's an exciting one. Ultimately, there's a lot that we can get into in terms of the X's and O's and how this game's going to play out, who's going to be defending who and all that. But I think ultimately the sort of the playoff math or the team math, it kind of comes down to this. I think Luka's the best player in the series. But then after that, the question for the Mavs is, can Kyrie be at the very worst the third best player in the series? If he's not, that's big trouble. Because here's the way I see this. If, for example, let's say if Tatum and Brown play Kyrie and Luka even, that's probably ball game. Because the rest of the guys on the Celtics, I'm going to take the rest of the guys. I'm going to take them over the rest of the guys on the Mavs. When you look at, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, Derek White, all these guys, I'm going to take them over good players, but Derek Lively, PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr. on a minimum contract has become very important for the Mavs. They've got good players and guys who played their roles very well, and that's why they've gotten this far. But in terms of if one side needs a guy to step up and make a big play, I think the Celtics have more guys who have the ability to do that. And so, again, I think it falls on Luka and Kyrie to be significantly the best player in the series, and then at worst, the third best player in this series, if the Mavs are going to have a shot to get this done.
I completely agree. I mean, that's one of the things I've been going through as people have asked. I'm sure you've been in the same boat. People continually asking, like, what's your pick and why, and those kind of things. And when I give my pick, it's that's a big part of it. Is it's the 4 stars, I believe, will show up more often than not throughout the course of the series. But then you can argue the 3 or maybe 4 next guys you would pick might all be Celtics. I would probably say it's at least 3. I would say Holiday, White, and Porzingis, because it seems like Porzingis is okay. Now, if Porzingis is just kind of out there, well, that changes the math a little bit, and that changes things slightly back towards Dallas's favor. But I am very much of the belief that the Celtics should have more guys they can go to. I think the Celtics have less places that you can attack them defensively too. Luke is going to get his. Kyrie is going to get his. But I believe Boston has the ability to make them work more than I think the Mavericks have the ability to make the Celtics work for baskets. In the end, what I've come back to time and time again is both teams are going to score a lot of points. Like, it's going to be an offensive series. But I think when it really comes down to it, Boston will be able to buckle down and get stops at points in the game, where I don't know where Dallas goes to try to get those stops. Celtics can play themselves out of games. We see it on occasion, but it happens less and less and less as this year has gone along. They've generally stayed pretty much to not beating themselves in a lot of games. So I think it's going to be a series of close games. If it's a 2-point game with a minute left, you're probably leaning Dallas because if Luka's not the best player in the world right now, he's certainly in the top 3, maybe 4. I wouldn't even go beyond 3. But that's going to be really, really hard to beat. But I don't know. I kind of think it might be one of those ones where they're like crunch time games, but they barely qualified, and then Boston pulls away and leads by 6 to 8 to 10, over the course of the last few minutes, and they kind of comfortably win it, closing it out that way. And that's just, all year long I've been on. I think they have the best team in the league. I'm not going to change that opinion now going into the finals. They've proven it over and over again, and that's why I feel pretty confident in this series.
So if you like 3-point shooting, this is the series for you. These are the top 2 3-point shooting teams in the NBA by volume. The Celtics take, I'm rounding up a bit, but 43 threes per game. The Mavs take 40 threes per game. So this is a series for 3-point shooting. I know people complain a lot about, Steph Curry and spamming threes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you hate that, you're going to hate this series because both of these teams rely very heavily on 3-point shooting, but that also creates a lot of variation in this where, a slightly hot 3-point shooting night, that's all it takes to make up a big gap. And so that's where this gets interesting. That's why you see in today's NBA where teams come back from down 20 like way more often than we saw in the past because of the value and the volume now of the 3-point attempts. So this is the series for you if you like a lot of 3-point shooting. Keith, I know you're going Boston. You're going Boston in what, 6?
5,
7,
5.
You go Boston 5. Okay.
So I've over the years we've been doing this together, I don't like picking a team to close the series on the road, especially in a game 6. So then I lean to where do I feel more strongly about? I feel more strongly that it's going to be 5, but I think it's going to be 5 where it's kind of like Wolves Mavs, where that was 5, but every game was close and awesome. I think it'll be like that, very close. But I feel very, very confident in the Celtics. I am also very open to being completely wrong because Luka wins a game by himself, Kyrie wins a game by himself, and all of a sudden we're in a game 7 and anything could happen in that situation. If it's a game 7, I'm going to be, I don't even know what kind of ball of stress mess I'll be, probably just in the corner over there by my chair crying as a mess all day before it starts because that's going to be stressful. But I feel that confident in the Celtics. It's less about the Mavericks for me than that's how confident I've been in this Boston team all year long.
Well, I picked the Mavs before we even started the playoffs as my team that was going to make it through. Lo and behold, here they are. I am not some great prognosticator. There is plenty of luck built into that, but I'm going to stick with the Mavs. I'm going to say Mavs in 6, and honestly, I can't make a basketball reason why. Why? Like I can't look at it and say, well, Mavs have got X, Y, and Z, and this is why. I don't want to root for Thanos, right? I'm not going to watch the Avengers and root for Thanos, right? Like I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to pull for the Mavs and hope somehow, some way we can avoid the dark timeline. But I don't see how it's possible. I don't see how the Mavs win. I'm just hoping for some kind of a miracle.
I'm not. It's funny because I make that Celtics in 5 and everybody, you might as well pick a sweep is the attitude people give you. Might as well pick a sweep in 20-point blowouts. And I'm like, I don't feel like that's where I'm going with this because I really do. There are ways the Mavericks can win this, but you better than I ever could have put it very simply. Luke has to be the best player and Kyrie can't be the 4th best player, and it can't be by any kind of margin. Like they have to be, those guys probably have to outplay Tatum and Brown by a pretty wide margin because I think all the rest of it, as you look at it, just starts to lean Boston. But Celtics, every once in a while, they don't shoot really well and they become a pretty big mess that way. But that happens like once every 7 or 8 games. And once every 7 or 8 games, they lose and look really bad. I liked your point too. 20-point first half lead either way in this series. Don't turn it off and assume it's over. No, go to bed. Like
it's not.
Both of these teams can be back. They'll be back into it at 7-8 possessions. It'll be we're right back into being a game again. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really fun series. I absolutely cannot wait. I am beyond fired up for tonight and beyond. Even if I know by the time 8:30 rolls around, I'm going to be yelling like, "Can we please tip off already?" Like it's already been 84 years, like the Titanic old lady says. But like, what are we doing? Because we know it's going to be closer to 8:45 because that's the way ABC, ESPN does it. But
why can't we just actually tip off at the time that we're like other sports do this. Other sports, like the game starts at 7:30. Okay, the game starts at 7:30. That's it, right?
And then they
Why do we
have
do
like the
this?
one or two that start like on time, and you're invariably,
And it's always when I'm running late that they do that.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I've got 10 minutes. I can grab a drink. I can get a snack. I can go to the bathroom. And then you're like, oh, this one started on time. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about watching soccer. They say it's 8 o'clock kickoff, kicks off at 8 o'clock. And then, then you go. But that's nobody wants to hear soccer talk here on the front office show.
Only sometimes. Only sometimes.
True,
and rarely at that. All right. Let's finish up with this. The TV contract, TNT maybe trying to pull an Undertaker and sit up, and so they're not dead yet here. Trying to get back involved. Maybe they can find a way to still have some games. If not, Keith, you and I have talked about it. I still think the Inside the NBA crew, it lives on in some way. It's too popular for nobody to try to take advantage of that, in my opinion. But TNT maybe trying to get at least a few games carved off the NBA schedule for themselves.
Yeah, they are doing what they can, it sounds like, to keep a fourth rights deal. And that would presumably be, hey, let us keep our Thursday night package or whatever week they decide, day of the week they decided, and we'll keep it together. We'll keep our guys together and we'll do our one night a week. The problem is going to be, can they get playoffs? Can they get something else? What is it going to look like? So, yeah, this is all still very much sounds like evolving. And, though, if the NBA is like, hey, a night that would have been a league pass only night, we can spin off for $1.5 billion a year or something. Done. Let's go. Let's make it happen. It's just even more money into the system. And I get it. People are like, when is enough? But yeah, if it keeps TNT in the game, I'm fine with it. I have no issue. It's I enjoy TNT. I do worry you get too many exclusive nights. That's when we run into stuff where it's like there can only be 2 or 3 games tonight, and that makes more back-to-backs and schedule messes. They've got to keep that schedule balance that they found. But keep TNT in the game, I guess, and take more money if you can get it.
Yeah, if anything, I think they need to be back-to-backs are the scourge of the NBA, especially back-to-backs on the road. Those are awful, and
travel.
Yes, need to be eliminated. So anything that would add to that would be unfortunate. But we'll see if TNT can stay in the game or not. And perhaps maybe we've got 4 TV deals, and then the cap smoothing is going to have to work overtime at that point. But we know it's only going to go up a max of 10%. So we'll see what all this ultimately plays out to look like. But Keith, I know you've got a big game tonight. I'll be doing play-by-play
now. I've got another radio spot, and you've got radio, and we're
got
men
all kinds
who are
of
in
crazy
demand
stuff
for different reasons, but good reasons.
That's right. Everybody, thank you for joining the show. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.